Pay attention to this camera footage. At 11:47 p.m. on March 14, 2019, a parking garage security camera at Cedar Hills Medical Center in Portland, Oregon captured something that would later become Exhibit A in a murder trial. The grainy footage shows a white Lexus SUV pulling into space C-47. A woman emerges from the driver's side. She's alone. She walks calmly toward the elevator bank, her phone glowing in her hand. What makes this footage critical is what happened exactly 6 hours earlier, and what investigators would spend the next 3 years piecing together. March 14, 2019, 5:32 p.m. A red light camera captures two vehicles crossing the Burnside Bridge heading east. The first is a black Mercedes S-Class. The second, following at a distance of roughly 40 feet, is the same white Lexus SUV. Inside the Mercedes, 71-year-old Harold Pemberton, a retired pharmaceutical executive worth an estimated $18.3 million. Inside the Lexus, 52-year-old Elena Moss, his live-in caregiver of 19 years. Harold had suffered a debilitating stroke in the year 2000 that left him partially paralyzed on his right side, confined to a wheelchair, and dependent on round-the-clock care. His wife had passed away 2 years before the stroke. His only son, James, lived in Singapore and visited once a year, maybe twice. Elena had been there for all of it. She fed him, bathed him, managed his medications, drove him to appointments, paid his bills. Over time, she became more than a caregiver. She became the most trusted person in his life. But what no one realized was that another camera was already recording. January 11, 2018, 2:14 p.m. Hallway camera, law offices of Renfield and Stowe, downtown Portland. Attorney Jonathan Renfield's office building has 3 cameras in the main hallway. Camera 2, positioned near the elevators, captures Harold Pemberton arriving in his wheelchair, pushed by Elena Moss. They proceed to conference room B. The meeting lasts 1 hour and 43 minutes. When they leave, Elena is holding a manila folder. What happened inside that room would become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Harold Pemberton had rewritten his will. The new document left his entire estate, $15.8 million in liquid assets, plus the family home in Lake Oswego valued at $2.7 million, to Elena Moss. James Pemberton, his only child, was left nothing. February 9, 2018, 6:47 p.m. A Ring doorbell camera captures James Pemberton arriving unannounced. He knocks. Elena answers. The audio is muffled, but their body language tells the story. James gestures sharply. Elena crosses her arms. He points past her into the house. She shakes her head. The argument escalates. James raises his voice, loud enough for the camera to pick up fragments. You've been poisoning him against me? He doesn't even recognize me anymore? I know what you're doing. Elena steps back and closes the door. James stands there for another 20 seconds, staring at the camera before turning and walking back to his car. He would later testify that this was the moment he knew something was terribly wrong. March 10, 2019, 10:22 a.m. Elena Moss withdraws $9,800 in cash. It's her third withdrawal in 2 weeks, each just under the $10,000 federal reporting threshold. Investigators would later trace these withdrawals to Harold's joint checking account, an account Elena had been added to in 2017 for convenience. Between January 2018 and March 2019, she withdrew over $340,000. March 13, 2019, 8:11 p.m. James had installed a hidden camera in the living room during his last visit. Harold didn't know about it. Neither did Elena. The footage shows Harold in his wheelchair, facing the television. Elena enters the frame carrying a small tray. On it, a glass of water and what appears to be medication. She hands him the glass. He drinks. She waits. 11 minutes later, Harold's head begins to droop. Elena leans in close, speaking to him. The audio is too faint to hear clearly, but forensic lip readers would later testify that she says, "It's almost over now." March 14, 2019, 5:32 p.m. This is where the timeline becomes critical. At 5:32 p.m., both vehicles, Harold's Mercedes and Elena's Lexus, cross the bridge. But only one of them reaches the hospital. At 5:51 p.m., a traffic camera near Laurelhurst Park captures the Mercedes turning onto a side street. The Lexus follows. Then, nothing. No cameras on that street. No witnesses. Just a 19-minute gap. March 14, 2019, 11:47 p.m. Parking garage camera, Cedar Hills Medical Center. Elena returns. Alone. She parks in space C47, walks to the elevator and takes it to the 4th floor. At 11:53 p.m., she enters the emergency room and reports that Harold Pemberton has suffered a cardiac event at home. She tells the intake nurse she found him unresponsive in his wheelchair and called 911 immediately. But there's a problem. Harold wasn't at home, and 911 had no record of her call. March 15, 2019, 1:14 a.m. Police body camera, Pemberton residence. Officers responding to a welfare check find the house empty. Harold's wheelchair is in the living room. His medications are on the counter. But Harold is gone. At 3:22 a.m., a search team discovers his body in his Mercedes, parked on a dead-end access road near Laurelhurst Park. He's slumped in the driver's seat. The engine is off. The keys are on the floor. Cause of death: acute benzodiazepine and opioid toxicity. Harold Pemberton had been given a lethal combination of sedatives, far exceeding any prescribed dose. What no one realized was that another camera was already recording. March 16, 2019, 9:03 a.m. Warehouse camera, Tri-County impound lot. When investigators impound the Mercedes, they discover something unexpected. Harold had installed a dashcam 6 months earlier. Elena didn't know about it. The footage is damning. It shows Elena in the driver's seat of the Mercedes, with Harold unconscious in the passenger seat. She's driving. The timestamp reads 6:08 p.m. on March 14, 37 minutes after the last traffic camera sighting. She parks on the access road. She repositions Harold's body into the driver's seat, adjusting his hands on the steering wheel. She wipes down surfaces. She places the keys on the floor. Then she walks out of frame. 8 minutes later, the Lexus pulls up behind the Mercedes. Elena gets in and drives away. March 18, 2019, 7:44 a.m. Police interrogation room camera, Portland Police Bureau. Elena Moss is brought in for questioning. She's calm, cooperative. She repeats the same story: Harold was at home. She found him unresponsive. She panicked and drove to the hospital. Detectives show her the dashcam footage. Her face goes pale. She asked for a lawyer. June 12, 2021, 10:17 a.m. Courtroom camera, Multnomah County Courthouse. The trial lasts 11 days. The prosecution presents over 40 hours of surveillance footage, financial records showing Elena's withdrawals, toxicology reports, and testimony from James Pemberton, who describes years of being slowly pushed out of his father's life. The defense argues that Harold was depressed, that he took the pills himself, that Elena was only trying to protect his dignity. But the dashcam footage is irrefutable. On June 23, 2021, the jury deliberates for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, elder abuse, financial exploitation, and tampering with evidence. August 4, 2021, 2:33 p.m. Courtroom camera, sentencing hearing. Elena Moss is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. James Pemberton reads a victim impact statement. He talks about the father he lost twice, once to the stroke and once to the woman who was supposed to care for him. The judge addresses Elena directly. You spent 19 years earning his trust. And in the end, you used that trust to take everything: his money, his dignity, and his life. Elena shows no emotion. The cameras capture it all. The estate was returned to James Pemberton. He donated $5 million to a foundation for elder abuse prevention. The dashcam footage, the parking garage tape, the hallway cameras, the ATM withdrawals, it all painted a picture of slow, methodical betrayal. A woman who saw an opportunity and took it. A man who trusted the wrong person. Harold Pemberton had no idea he was being recorded in his final hours. But those cameras told the story he couldn't. By the time the footage was played in court, it was already too late. But at least the truth was no longer hidden. The cameras always remember. If you found this case as chilling as I did, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the cases that cameras help solve. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, because awareness can save lives. And if you have an elderly loved one in care, trust your instincts. Ask questions. Stay involved. Don't let distance or trust become a shield for betrayal. Leave a comment below. Have you ever suspected something was wrong with a loved one's caregiver? What did you do? Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant. Stay safe.